look might be some.
Going from wet plants, so they're completely the other extreme, to succulents. And this is a bulb that I planted up earlier this year. And not only is it still looking good, I'm very happy with it, but they're thriving. I haven't watered them, I have done nothing to them at all. The only water they've had is a bit of rain, and recently not a lot of that. The way succulents work is they draw up water from their roots and store it in their foliage. So they've got their own reserve. It is important you give them the right compost. They need a really gritty, free-draining compost, and they do need plenty of sunshine. But if you can give them that, certainly any rain we get is more than enough for them. So of a plant that you can grow on windowsills and balconies, I suspect there are none that are less demanding. We now visit Terry Smale, who has developed a passion for one particular group of succulent plants. And to my mind, these are amongst the strangest living things that you will find on this planet.
The Mesembryanthemum family is essentially Southern African. There's a total of about 1,700 species, but the ones which really interest the enthusiasts like me are Lithops and Conophytum. Just so totally unique. They're weird plants, there's nothing else quite like them, and they're actually beautifully adapted to the environments in which they grow. I started really growing plants when I was very young. My parents had a little two-bedroom terraced house in Plymouth. My father made his own little greenhouse in this tiny back garden, but as a child I was allowed to sow things in there. But I do have a memory about my father taking me to a cactus and succulent show at the local Quaker meeting house. And I do actually remember seeing Lithops. It was the first time that I've ever seen anything like Lithops. It really went on from there. The name Lithops comes from the Greek lithos, which means stone. And because they have this stone-like appearance, the common name that's normally used for them is living stones. Most of it is below ground, and very often all you've got above ground is the flat top surface. And when you look carefully at a Lithops plant, you will see that there are transparent areas, and these regulate the amount of light which can get down inside the body and which can be used for photosynthesis. The best time to repot any succulent plants is early in their growing season. So for Lithops, May, June, maybe July is the ideal time. The potting mix that I use for all of my Mesembryanthemums is equal parts of John Innes number 3 and this very coarse granite grit, which is round about 4 millimeters particle size. And we can just sort of mix that up. And then that is my standard mix, which is very well drained. We can easily separate them out. We've got a nice deep taproot on it and give it plenty of room. So just a bit of compost in there, let the roots drop down, and just gently firm it. And I always keep little brushes handy, so you can just dust off the plants afterwards. My favourite genus, Conophytum, is a lot less well known than Lithops. What particularly appeals to me is the sheer variety that you get in this genus. So, for instance, the contrast in size and shape. So if you look at this one, we've got a plant which is maybe 4 centimetres tall and very sort of deeply lobed, and then contrast it with this very tiny plant. These plants are actually 25 years old, And yet we've got these very small heads which are only a few millimetres across. To get seed from lithops or conophytums, you need two different clones, which are not genetically identical. The stamens and stigma are hidden right down in a narrow flower tube. So you need something that's very thin to transfer the pollen from one to another. The way I do it is to use one of my own hairs that I can pull out with the sticky follicle end still intact. And that can be inserted into the flower tube to pick up the pollen, which can then be transferred. And in doing this, I'm effectively mimicking the small insects, small bees, etc., which would do this in the wild. After you've pollinated lithops or conophytum plants, the seed pods develop over the winter, but by the time they get to next summer, they dry up to form these woody capsules. When it rains, the seed pods open up and the seeds are released. And I really must show you this particular plant, which is actually called Conophytum smaelorum. And this was named for me and for my wife Jennifer, really to recognise the amount of work that we've done over the years in distributing seeds of all of the Mesembryanthemum family. So we're really rather proud to have that. My passion for these plants is, it started 50 years ago. I will have these plants, and particularly the conophytums, with me till the end of my life. I'm absolutely sure of that.